Welcome to today's episode of the Deep Dive Credit Podcast, presented by Elite Credit Solutions. We are your trusted partner in affordable credit repair, proudly based in Tampa, Florida, and dedicated to serving clients across the entire United States. Join us as we explore the intricacies of credit management, share expert insights, and empower you with the knowledge you need to achieve your financial goals. Get ready for an enlightening journey into the world of credit. Let's dive in.
Today we're going to deep dive into something that's a little bit tricky. Getting car insurance with a suspended license. Not exactly a fun topic, but we've got all the info you need from some recent articles by Experian, Progressive, and Bankrate too. And you might be surprised to hear that it is actually possible to get insurance, even with a suspended license. But there are definitely some hurdles to jump through, like higher premiums, special forms you'll need, and you might even need to find a whole new insurance company.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a more complex process.
Yeah.
But I think once you understand the whys and the hows, it makes it a lot less intimidating.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why would your license even be suspended in the first place? Obviously, we've got the usual suspects. DUIs, reckless driving, ignoring all those parking tickets. But there was one reason that I really wasn't expecting.
You thinking about the medical conditions,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, Experian mentioned that even something like epilepsy, if it's not properly managed, could actually lead to a license suspension.
Yeah.
Kind of a reminder that it's not always a black and white situation.
Yeah, it really adds a whole other layer to it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing that I've been wondering about. If you can't legally drive, why would you even need to have car insurance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A lot of people think that way. But imagine this. You let your insurance lapse while your license is suspended, thinking you'll just pick it back up later when you're able to drive again. Sounds reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Well, Progressive actually pointed out that insurers see those gaps in coverage as a major red flag. They might assume that you were driving without insurance. And then when you try to get coverage again, they could really slam you with higher rates.
So they're kind of punishing you for something you didn't even do.
Yeah, in a way. It's all about risk assessment for them. Any gaps in coverage equal higher risk. But there are also a few other reasons why you might still need to have insurance, even with a suspended license. Like, what if you're eligible for a restricted license, where you can drive to work?
Wow.
Or school, but not for just like leisure driving. You would still need insurance to be legal.
Right, okay, that makes sense. And then Bankrate brought up another situation. What if you're still making payments on your car?
Exactly. If you've leased your car, or you're still financing it, the lender is most likely going to require you to maintain full coverage, even if your car is literally just sitting in the garage.
Wow, so even if the car is not moving, it still needs that insurance safety net.
Yep, they're protecting your investment. Just want to make sure their asset is covered no matter what happens.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've established that you often DOs still need car insurance, even with a suspended license. But here's the million-dollar question. Can insurance companies actually see that your license is suspended? Like, do they have access to some secret database?
Oh, yeah, they definitely do. All the articles we looked at, they all emphasize how much insurers scrutinize driving records, especially when you're applying for a new policy or renewing an existing one. They have access to state databases, and they use them.
Yeah.
So there's no hiding from a suspended license.
So they pretty much know everything. All right, so let's get to the heart of the matter. How do you actually get insurance when you've got this suspended license hanging over your head?
Well, this is where those special forms come in. You know the SR-22, or in some states, it's the FR-44, which is even stricter.
I've heard those terms before, but to be honest, I've never really understood what they actually are.
Okay, well, think of them kind of like your golden ticket, your get-out-of-jail-free card. It proves to the state that you're meeting their car insurance requirements, even though your license is suspended.
So it's basically like they're saying, we're watching you. You better have the right insurance.
Pretty much. It's how high-risk drivers can demonstrate financial responsibility.
Here I get. So where do you even get these forms? Do they just like magically appear in your mailbox?
No, not quite. Usually your insurance company will actually file the FR-22 or the FR-44 for you, but they'll probably charge you a fee for it. And Progressive mentioned that not all insurance companies even offer this service, especially for the FR-44, which some states require for more serious offenses.
So you might have to do some searching to find an insurer that's willing to work with you.
Exactly. And that's where doing some research online or talking to a good insurance broker can really save you a lot of headaches.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's say you've jumped through all the hoops, found an insurer that will take you on, got that SR22 or FR44 situation all sorted out. Now, for the question that's on everyone's mind. Is there any way to save money on insurance when you're dealing with a suspended license? Because, let's face it, this whole thing is already hitting the wallet pretty hard.
Absolutely. It's definitely an added financial burden. But the good news is, there are actually a few strategies that you can use to kind of soften the blow a little bit.
Okay, tell me everything. I'm always up for saving some money.
All right, well, first, let's talk about the deductible.
Yeah.
The amount that you pay out of pocket before the insurance kicks in.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Usually the lower the better, right?
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
But in this situation, increasing your deductible can actually lower your premium.
Okay, so there's a trade-off there.
Exactly. You need to make sure that you can actually afford to pay that higher deductible. If you have to file a claim, don't go setting yourself up for a financial disaster just to save a few bucks on your monthly payments.
That's a good point. So what other money-saving tips do you have?
Well, another one is to take a look at your policy and see if there are any unnecessary add-ons that you can get rid of. Like if your car is parked and you can't even drive it, do you really need rental car reimbursement or roadside assistance?
Probably not.
Right. And here's one that could be a real game changer, especially if you're on a restricted license and you're only driving short distances, pay-per-mile insurance.
Okay, I've heard about that, but I've never really understood how it works.
Well, it's actually pretty simple. Instead of paying a flat rate every month, you just pay based on how much you actually drive.
Oh, so if you're only driving to work and back a few days a week, you could save a lot.
Exactly. Definitely worth looking into.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to add that to my list. So those are some good tips. It sounds like there are ways to make this insurance thing a little less painful. But what happens if you've tried all the tricks and you're still having trouble finding coverage? Is there like a last resort?
There is. It's called the state's high-risk insurance pool.
High-risk insurance pool. That sounds a little intimidating.
I mean, it might not be the ideal situation, but it's there as a safety net for drivers who just can't get insurance anywhere else.
So it's like the insurance equivalent of like, okay, fine, we're not thrilled about it, but we'll do it.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
It might be more expensive, but at least you'll have coverage, which is what's important.
Okay, good to know. So even in a worst-case scenario, there's still a way to get insured and stay legal. Well, we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. We talked about the reasons behind license suspensions, why you might still need to have insurance, and even some ways to potentially save some money. But there's still so much more to explore.
Yeah, we're just getting started. In the next part, we'll dig even deeper into the long-term consequences of a suspended license and talk about some state-specific nuances that you should know about.
Ooh, that sounds interesting. Buckle up, everyone. We're just getting started. Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into insurance with a suspended license. We'll tackle those lingering questions and give you the knowledge you need to get back on track.
Welcome back to our deep dive on getting car insurance with a suspended license.
All right, so in part 1, we talked about why you might still need insurance, even if your license is suspended, and how to actually go about getting coverage. But now I'm curious about something that Progressive mentioned. Just how long does a license suspension affect your insurance rates? Is it like this thing that just follows you around forever?
Well, not forever, but it can definitely feel like it sometimes. The length of time a suspension affects your rates really depends on a few things.
Like what?
Well, the biggest one is the reason for the suspension. A DUI or a reckless driving conviction. Those are going to carry a lot more weight than something like unpaid parking tickets or a medical suspension.
So basically, the worse the offense, the longer you're going to be paying for it, insurance-wise.
Exactly. And then you've got your state laws.
Sure.
Which can be all over the place. Some states are pretty lenient. They might wipe the slate clean after a few years. But others, they can hold on to those violations for like a decade. Or even longer.
That's rough. So it's not just about serving your time. You got to play the long game with your insurance, too.
Absolutely. That's why it's super important to understand the specific rules for your state. Don't just assume anything. Do your research.
Okay, noted. Now, I remember Bankrate mentioned a few tactics for actually finding cheaper car insurance, even with a suspended license. So let's dive into those, because who doesn't love saving some money?
Right.
So one of the things they talked about was improving your credit score, which to me seems kind of unrelated. What does my credit score have to do with my driving?
Yeah, it is kind of a head-scratcher. But in most states, insurers can actually use your credit history to set your rates.
Really?
Yep. There have been studies that show a correlation between credit scores and insurance claims. Basically, insurers argue that people who are responsible with their finances tend to be more responsible drivers as well.
Okay, I guess I can see the logic there, even if it feels a little weird. So, paying my bills on time could actually lead to lower car insurance.
It's definitely something to think about. And speaking of being responsible, maintaining a clean driving record, after you get your license back, of course, is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, easy peasy. Just don't get any more tickets or accidents, no problem.
Well, easier said than done, I know. But you're right, it's really important. Most insurers only look back at your driving history for the past 3 to 5 years. So if you can keep your nose clean after a suspension, it could really make a difference in bringing those rates down.
So basically, you just got to prove that you've learned from your mistakes.
I'm not.
And you're a reformed driver now.
Exactly. Oh, and don't forget about those insurance discounts.
Ooh, discounts.
Yeah, there are actually a lot of discounts out there that can really add up, like bundling your car insurance with other policies. Homeowners or renters insurance, that's a classic one. And some insurers also offer discounts for things like completing a defensive driving course, being a member of certain organizations, or even just paying your premium in full upfront.
So it's worth doing some digging, seeing what you might qualify for.
Absolutely. Never hurts to ask. And Bankrate also mentioned another option, enrolling in a telematics program.
A tele what? What is that?
It sounds kind of sci-fi. But basically, it's a way for insurers to track your driving habits in real time. They use a device in your car or a smartphone app to monitor things like your speed, your braking, and how much you're driving.
So Big Brother is watching.
Kind of. But it can actually work to your advantage if you're a safe and responsible driver. A telematics program can actually help you lower your rates. But of course, if you have a lead foot, or you tend to slam on the brakes a lot, your rates might go up.
So it's a little bit of a gamble.
It can be. But if you're confident in your driving skills, and you think you can maintain good habits, it could be a way to save some money.
Okay, I'm definitely going to look into that. What about coverage types and limits? Can adjusting those make a difference too?
Yeah, definitely. If your license is suspended and your car is basically in storage, you might consider reducing your coverage to just comprehensive. That'll protect your car from things like theft, vandalism, or natural disasters. But it won't cover any damage from driving, which makes sense since you're not supposed to be driving anyway.
Right, that makes sense. And then there's the deductible again too, right?
Yep. Increasing your deductible. You know the amount you pay out of pocket before the insurance kicks in can lower your premiums.
But there's always a but.
Right. But
Yep.
make sure you can actually afford to pay that higher deductible. If you do end up needing to make a claim, don't want to put yourself in a tough spot financially, just to save a little bit each month.
Very true. So it's all about finding that balance. Okay, well, I'm feeling a lot more confident about tackling this whole insurance thing now. We've covered a lot of ground here, from the reasons for license suspensions to all the nitty-gritty of finding affordable insurance. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have one more question. What happens after you get your license back? Does the insurance world just forget about that whole suspension thing?
Well, I wish it were that easy, but unfortunately, it's not that simple. Like we talked about before, a suspension can stay on your driving record for years, and that can affect your rates, even after you've got your license back.
So it's like this shadow that follows you around.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But there are things you can do to minimize the long-term impact. The most important thing is, focus on maintaining a clean driving record. From this point forward, every year that you drive safely helps to chip away at the effect that suspension has on your rates.
So it's all about proving you're a changed driver.
Exactly. And it's also a good idea to keep track of how long your state keeps suspensions on their records. Once that period of time has passed, it's like hitting the reset button. Your rates should start to reflect your current driving profile.
Okay, so there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There is.
Any other tips for navigating that post-suspension insurance world?
Well, you know the drill. Shop around regularly for insurance quotes. Don't just assume that your current insurer is giving you the best deal. The market's always changing, and new discounts and programs pop up all the time, so you might be able to find something better. And don't be afraid to negotiate with your insurer either. Sometimes just asking nicely can get you a lower rate.
Good advice. Well, we've covered a ton of information here. But before we move on to the final part of our deep dive into insurance with a suspended license, I want to leave you with one final thought. Think about this suspended license, not just as a punishment, but as an opportunity. It's a chance to really reflect on your driving habits, make some positive changes, maybe even develop a deeper appreciation for the privilege of driving. It might not feel like it now, but this experience could actually end up making you a safer and more responsible driver in the long run.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about car insurance and all the little details, the better prepared you'll be to handle anything that comes your way.
All right, so welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into car insurance with a suspended license. We've covered a lot of practical stuff so far, like how to actually get insurance and different ways to save money. But I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something that I've been thinking about.
Okay, go to that.
Well, we've talked about like the financial hit of a suspended license, but what about the emotional side of things? Like, this can't be an easy experience.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not just about the logistics
Yeah.
and the money. It's about how this whole situation makes you feel. Having a suspended license can really mess with your sense of freedom, independence, maybe even your self-worth.
Yeah, it's like this part of your life is just on hold, and that can be super frustrating.
For sure. You might be feeling angry, embarrassed,
Yeah.
even kind of lost. And all of that is totally normal. It's important to let yourself feel those things. Don't try to bottle them up.
So what can you do when those feelings start to creep in? How do you deal with that emotional roller coaster?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that you're not alone.
Yeah.
This is way more common than you might think. Tons of people have gone through the same thing and come out the other side.
Yeah, like it's a club that nobody wants to be a part of, but at least you know you're not the only member.
Right. And there are resources out there to help you through it. Don't be afraid to reach out to friends, family, maybe even a therapist. Talking about how you're feeling can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's easy to isolate yourself when you're going through something tough, but connecting with others can really help.
Absolutely. And another thing to remember is this is temporary. It might feel like it's dragging on forever, but eventually you'll get your license back.
Yeah.
And things will start to go back to normal.
That light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. And in the meantime,
Yeah.
try to focus on the things that you can control. Maybe use this time to check out some different ways to get around. Public transportation, biking, whatever works for you. Or pick up a new hobby. Spend more time with people you care about. This could be a chance to rethink your priorities and make some positive changes.
It's like turning lemons into lemonade.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe this whole experience will make you a more cautious and responsible driver in the long run.
Yeah, like a forced timeout to think about your driving habits.
For sure. So a suspended license is definitely a challenge, but it's not the end of the world. With the right mindset
Yeah.
and a good support system, you can get through this and come out stronger on the other side.
I love that. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into car insurance with a suspended license. We've covered a lot of ground, from the practical stuff to the emotional impact of this whole situation.
Yeah, we really went deep.
Hopefully you're leaving here feeling more informed and empowered to deal with this.
That's what we're here for.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about car insurance and the resources that are out there, the better prepared you'll be to handle any challenges that pop up.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time for another insightful look into a topic that matters to you. Until then, drive safe out there, everyone.
Another insightful episode of the Deep Dive Credit Podcast, brought to you by Elite Credit Solutions, your go-to resource for affordable credit repair across the United States. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope you found the information valuable and empowering. If you're ready to take control of your financial future, don't hesitate to reach out to us at 813-317-6776. Additionally, don't forget to like today's podcast, share with your friends on social media, follow us, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in tune with future updates. Thank you for listening. And until next time, keep striving for excellence in your credit journey.